So imagine you are having severe back pain and you decide to put your trust in a doctor. He's a new doctor, he's confident, says that he's never made any mistakes before, and claims that he can take your pain away. So you agree to have surgery. It seems that everyone around this doctor really likes him, so you agree in hopes that the surgery is going to provide some sort of relief. However, you wake up after surgery and you've lost the ability to move your legs. Was this spinal cord injury just a medical mishap? Or did this doctor intentionally try to kill you? Well, Dr. Christopher Daniel Dunch, a former neurosurgeon working in Dallas, ended up getting the nickname of Dr. Death. 33 out of 38 of his patients were seriously injured and 2 were killed. His reputation was so dangerous that they are literally about to come out with a TV series based on how terrifying his true story is, which you guys should definitely go watch on Peacock. But how exactly did this man get here? Well, Christopher Dunch was born in Montana on April 3rd of 1971. He graduated from a small Christian college and then decided that he'd go to medical school in Memphis. Part 2 of Dr. Death. So Christopher Dunch had such a promising beginning. He ended up getting into the University of Tennessee Health Science Center, and during his time there, he ran labs, raised millions of dollars in grant funding. He was listed as one of 3 inventors on a successful patent, and he also gave a stem cell research tour to the governor of Tennessee. And while this seems amazing, there was already some issues. He ended up giving himself more credit than what was due for those patents, as opposed to his partners who were trying to create cells from culture to eliminate the need for human extraction. Also, later on his resume, he ended up saying that he graduated from St. Jude's Children's Hospital, getting a doctorate in microbiology whenever they said they didn't even have that program at that time. But it didn't take him long to set his sights on neurosurgery. Because of how hard being a neurosurgeon is, you're required to participate in around 1,000 surgeries during your residency. But during his 4th year, he was sent to an impaired physicians program, which usually happens when you're suspected of being under the influence during operation. And this occurred during his 4th year. After graduating, he worked with some biotech startups, and then moved to Dallas, got a job at Baylor, and started to operate. Part 3 to Dr. Death. The way that the other surgeons describe him there is being very much arrogant. He would talk about how amazing he was, even though he was so new to the field. And several of his surgeries ended up botched. A medical investigator came to see him as a patient, and after his surgery, he experienced chronic pain and limited mobility. Another male patient came to see him, and was literally left with bone fragments in his spinal canal, eventually losing all function in his left side. And not to mention one of his best friends, Jerry Summers, came to see him for his surgery because he had chronic pain due to a car accident, which ended up rendering him quadriplegic. So the people at Baylor limited him to minor surgeries only. And then a mom of 2 girls came to see him for a routine surgery, in which she lost so much blood that she lost her life. And during the operation, Dr. Dunch ignored that anything was going wrong. He just continued the surgery. So Baylor was absolutely done with him and kicked him out. So he moved on to Dallas Medical Center. He ended up getting temporary privileges until they received his records from Baylor. This was a huge mistake. Dr. Death Part 4. So at this new surgery center, he literally lasted for less than a week. His privileges were pulled after he killed yet another patient and paralyzed another. And this is when Dr. Henderson steps in. He's a longtime spine surgeon, and he ends up having to do corrective surgery on 2 of Dunch's patients. And he's literally so horrified with his work that he thinks he's an imposter. So he faxed a photo of the doctor over to the University of Tennessee just to check. And it really started to seem like he knew what not to do and was doing it on purpose. Anyone with a basic anatomy class would have done better. Since he was only temporary, the hospital was not required to report him. And Dr. Dunch ended up getting 2 more jobs after this, and severely hurting more people. One was left temporarily paralyzed, but with permanent pain. And the other one, he mistook a neck muscle for a tumor, and cut a hole in his esophagus and left a surgical sponge in his throat. And the surgeon that came in to pick up the pieces afterwards referred to Dr. Death as a crazed maniac, and even said that it was clear that he was trying to kill his patient. It was obvious Texas was going to have to find a way to remove his license. Dr. Death Part 5. So after a lot of investigating, Texas Medical Board revoked his license. And this happened on December 6th of 2013. And his life was just in disarray after this. He went bankrupt and was literally caught on the Walmart camera stealing merchandise, and was arrested. There was still a possibility that he could get a medical license somewhere else, so they had to pursue criminal charges. They opened up an investigation, got him arrested, and started a trial. And during this trial, a lot of things came out. There was clear dangerous behavior between him and one of his long-term ex-girlfriends, and also another side piece of his. And one of his most damning pieces of evidence was an email of his that he was writing to a lover, comparing himself to Einstein and God, and basically stating that he was ready to leave kindness and goodness behind and become a cold-blooded killer. He ended up getting sentenced to prison, but there was a lot of other stuff that came out during this trial. And I also left out so many details throughout this whole story. You guys will have to watch the show on Peacock. They do such a great job of capturing just how scary this doctor is. The TV show Black Mirror is genuinely one of the scariest shows that I've ever seen. But what if some of its storylines actually started to come true? Since the episode Nosedive, where you basically leave people Google reviews, We've seen the potential introduction of social credit over in China, and we don't quite have drones the size of bees yet, but people at Harvard are currently trying to make them. And for contacts with cameras, Samsung actually ended up getting a patent for smart contacts. But one of the most prevalent storylines that's actually trending today is the episode with Miley Cyrus in it. In this episode, she plays a singer named Ashley O, and she's famous for her sound, her look, her originality, and even though she seems happy on the inside, she's very miserable. She's being given medication illegally to stabilize her mood, and it gets to the point where her management has so much control that it really isn't even her anymore. And I remember watching this and thinking how sad this would be, and would we even know if a celebrity was going through this? And then we had the introduction of the Free Britney movement. And so many of Britney's fans were able to identify that she was in trouble before she announced to the public. So how did we even get to knowing that Britney was in trouble? Well, a few fans here and there had talked about it briefly, whether it was a celebrity or a fan. The first time it was really mentioned was 2017 on a podcast called Britney's Gram. It was there to dissect Britney Spears' Instagram account, which there was a lot of weird things on. For example, she was putting a lot of timestamps on her Instagram photos, almost as if she was leaving some sort of a paper trail. And a lot of her photos were representative of her being locked up in a metaphorical sense. Like this photo right here says, "I put myself in a timeout until I can play nice with others. This may take a while," and the caption says, "A while? How about a decade?" Well, in 2020, there was a video of her that went viral on TikTok of her supporting LGBTQIA+. People were a little concerned about how she was behaving, and they told her if she needed help to wear yellow in her next video. And guess what? She wore yellow, so people commented to wear blue in her next video. And she responded by wearing blue. So everyone started to wonder about her conservatorship. Who was controlling her? Why did she need help? And why does her paperwork say she has dementia? So how can someone complete 4 world tours, record 4 albums, while also performing and selling out an entire Las Vegas show, while her paperwork says she has dementia? In 2008, Britney was placed under a temporary conservatorship at the age of 26. She had her famous breakdown that became household news overnight on January 4th of 2008. She had really hit rock bottom and was going through her custody dispute with Kevin Federline, and then was locked up again around January 31st. And this particular psych hospital that she was taken to had less than the best reviews. And this is when her conservatorship became permanent, due to her being unfit to take care of herself. Yet 2 months in, she ended up showing up for a role on How I Met Your Mother, and then wiped the floors at the VMAs, winning all the awards. In 2009, she had her circus tour, and a voicemail between her and her lawyer was leaked, saying that she desperately wanted to get out of this conservatorship, but that her father was threatening her. She did her Femme Fatale tour next, and then in 2012, she was an X Factor judge. Yet she was still deemed too unfit to take care of herself. Part 4 to Free Britney. So Britney had even tried to bring up her conservatorship on the Jonathan Ross show, but that part was cut. And in 2016, people noticed that she posted a photo with Hillary using the hashtag I'm with her, but then had to remove it, which turned out later because she couldn't vote. And after that, she was supposed to perform for her new Domination show, but then announced that she couldn't go due to her father's health issues, which it later turned out that her father, Jamie, had actually canceled the show because she wasn't taking her new medication. So once he pulled it, he told her to just blame it on his health issues. And his own grandson ended up coming on to Alive and talking about how awful he is. And in April of 2020, she was sent back to a mental health facility, which the anonymous paralegal who gave information to the podcast said that she had been forced there between mid-January all the way up to April. And then Kevin Federline ended up charging Jamie Spears for allegedly abusing one of their kids. And because he's Britney's conservator, she ended up only having 30% visitation with her kids because he basically owns her. And after the documentary came out, she said she was embarrassed, but was that really Britney? Part 5 to Free Britney. Well, as we've stated, she's had very weird stuff on her Instagram, but it seems as though midway through the content changed, and someone by the name of Cassie Petrie, who's her social media manager, has been posting for her. At least we know some of the time, maybe not all the time. And then on June 23rd, as we all heard, Britney broke her silence. She came out and shared everything that she's been through under her conservatorship to the courts. 13 years of her rights have been fully taken away. She can't have a baby, she can't get married, she can't take out her IUD. She's forced to work even when sick, can't even change her own kitchen cabinets. And whenever she actually tried to set up boundaries, she was put on lithium. Which I didn't know much about this drug, but this is what the holistic psychologist on Instagram said about it. Basically, no one is actually looking out for her mental health, and everyone is banking on her payroll. From her parents to her sister to everyone in her circle. And if you want to hear more about her sister, Jamie Lynn Spears, go to my Instagram, go to my Middle Reels tab, and I'm going to be talking about all the stuff that she's gone into, because there seems to be such a double standard in this family. Britney's father is an alcoholic and abusive, yet he's been deemed fit to take care of her. Last part to Free Britney. So since all of this has come out, there has been a huge public reaction and an overwhelming amount of support. Iggy Azalea even came out and said how she was a witness to this behavior, and she was even invited to testify before Congress. Christina Aguilera released this statement about her. And as we've been watching her Instagram again lately, we've seen that she's been on a trip, yet these photos have been used for her previously a year ago. So it's probably just Cassie running her account. Really, Brittany just needs healing and support right now. And I'm sure there's going to be even more updates by the time I come out with this video. And this whole story really shows the importance of autonomy. There's other celebrities like Amanda Bynes who are also under conservatorships, and we really don't know how bad those are. The court system seemed to be just so messed up, so people talking about it and actually providing social pressure helps. So we'll continue to talk about it, and hopefully it'll save Brittany. Something that is just a weird fear of mine is doctors pretending to be doctors. Like not actually having their licensure, but just playing the role, and secretly killing people while doing so. And yes, this has happened before. The most haunted hotel in America is known as the Crescent Hotel. I don't know if anybody else can relate to this, but I loved staying up at night watching ghost hunters. I would run around with my little EMF detector seeing if I could find ghosts myself. Well, my favorite episode of Ghost Hunters actually covered the Crescent. They ended up actually making contact with one of the ghosts, but I never really deep dived into how creepy this hotel's history actually is. So the Crescent Hotel was built in 1986. And it was a resort for the wealthy, rich, and powerful. But pretty fast, they found this whole hotel to be very unmanageable. And it was weirdly very accident prone in the building process. There was a stonemason named Michael who passed away, but we'll get to that later. Well, it reopened in 1908 as a college for girls. This photo gives me very much Midsummer vibes. While this college was considered prestige, they covered up a death. Part 2 to the Crescent Hotel. Well, one of the girls in this conservatory ended up falling for a guy. She ended up getting pregnant, and it was a huge deal during this time to be unwed and pregnant. On top of this, her dad forbade her from being with him. So she threw herself off the top of the building. The college completely covered it up, went about their business, and kept up with their high-priced tuition. But they only lasted until 1924. While all the way in Iowa, a man named Norman Baker was a radio host. Very eccentric, had a big personality. And while there isn't a whole lot of information on how he came to this conclusion, he decided that he was going to be a doctor without any kind of license or experience. He claimed that he had discovered a variety of cures to numerous diseases, but it didn't take long for Iowa to figure out that he did not have the medical training, so they ran him out. Well, Mr. Baker was not giving up. And on his ventures where he could find a new place where he could cure people, he came across the Crescent. And in 1937, he opened the Baker's Cancer Curing Hospital. Hundreds of people checked into this hospital, and hundreds did not check out. Part 3 to the Crescent Hotel. It honestly breaks my heart because so many sick and desperate people showed up to his hospital because he literally claimed that he had the cure. But what his cure was injections from a mixture of glycerin, alcohol, and tea from watermelon seeds and clover leaves. And these injections were apparently extremely painful and happening 5 to 7 times a day. Patients would be in severe pain. And when they started to get extremely sick, they would be separated off from everyone else in an annex that was once used as the servants' quarters from the hotel before. And to give some perspective on the creepiness of the hotel today, that place is now a suite that you can spend the night in. And Mr. Baker was considered to have killed about 300 people because there's 300 names that were never checked out. And he actually killed them indirectly because he made his nurses do all the injections. He actually couldn't stand the sight of any medical procedure. He somehow got recognized by the American Medical Association and ended up making millions in today's money. And after people would pass away, he would take them down to the morgue, which is now the basement of the hotel. Part 4 of the Crescent Hotel. So you can still go down to this basement and look at all the gurneys, the wheelchairs, the medical equipment, along with a ton of jars. Some of these are filled with his concoction, some are filled with human remains. And as they've continued to build along the area, they have found more of Norman's things. Just as recent as 2019, they were excavating the area and ended up finding 500 items that included more jars filled with human remains.